there. So I'm prepared. I've been really taking her through the process, which is really earning my commission. But it's all going to work out well. And I feel
can you guys still hear Kathy?
No.
Okay. I was like, what happened? Okay. Shoot. What happened? Did she leave too? She was done. She's like, mic drop. Happens. All right. Who else wants to share? Let's get a couple more.
I'll jump in.
All right. Awesome.
Greg Taylor, Northern New Jersey and New York. My wife, so we have some VAs doing some outbound outreach for us. She got an expired lead, and so my wife got the lead, reached out to the lead, and this was for a $4 million property, way out of where our normal area of expertise is. So she reached out to the person regardless, and basically said, look, we don't service your area. However, we're part of like a large network of the top agents across the country, and we can actually pair you with them if that's something you'd be interested in. The person said yes. She researched, found the absolute best person in that particular area that does multi-million-dollar properties. And turns out she also happened to sell that exact same property before in the past, connected them. We were getting a referral fee on a $4 million property. It's almost like a normal listing for us. So wound up being something really good. And as a matter of fact, we're going to create an SOP around that and do more of that, because in the past, we wouldn't call outside of our general areas at all for any reason. Now that kind of gives us a reason to. So that's it.
That's great. And it's another good point too, about if you have, and it's a little different than what you shared, but if you guys have clients, right, that are moving out of the area, sometimes they don't even think that we could connect them with someone else. And maybe they haven't started the process. Like maybe they've looked at homes, but maybe they're not with a qualified agent or, you know, someone that can truly help them. So having that as part of even your listing presentation and then mentioning it when appropriate is good. Because, you know, it doesn't happen often, but every once in a while, you know, people think they have to have a different agent to sell and buy, or even like, oh, I'm moving somewhere else. How could you possibly help me? So really good. I love that you're creating the SOP around it. Good job. All right, let's get one more. Who else wants to share? I see that Phil put his market stats in the chat, which is awesome. So it helps us all see what his market is. And Phil, aren't you in California? I might be wrong. If you're shaking your head, I can't see. Oh, he's in the car. I see the car. Okay, never mind. That's okay. I was thinking.
My apologies.
Okay, you're where? Sorry, Phil.
No, I'm in my car. My earbud fell under my seat and I was having to get out to look for it.
Oh gosh, that's okay. What market are you in?
I'm in the Greenville, South Carolina, upstate market.
Got it.
Greenville Association Realtors. Yeah, we are experiencing a little bit of downturn as far as sales. Inventory is starting to pick up a little bit. We're at 3.2 months. You know, still, in my opinion, you know, more of a seller's market than a buyer's market.
Yeah.
But win for the week has finally got a commercial property that we've been negotiating for 2 months on under contract.
Oh, nice. That feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, now he's going to get through the financing, which won't be an issue, but just, you know, it's such a different world, the commercial world, than the residential.
Yeah.
Zero emotion. It's all about the numbers.
Yeah.
Which is nice because we closed a very difficult townhouse or condo in downtown yesterday that the sellers kept on having seller's remorse twice throughout the transaction and tried to back out, and it's like, you know, very. It was one that thank God it closed, and we're celebrating it closed more than the commission, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, that's awesome. Thank you for sharing. We appreciate it.
My pleasure.
All right, let's jump into the monthly market report. As a reminder, like sometimes it's hard to watch a video on video, right? So I just suggest like taking notes if you can. You'll want this information. You can use it to talk to your clients. You can use it to shoot videos. You can use it to put out content. So it's just really great information. And Steve Harney is going to take us through it. We use Keeping Current Matters. Keeping Current Matters, also known as KCM, is a subscription that you can get, and it's inexpensive, really great. They do market reports, customized that you can put out. They do, like buyer and seller guides. They give you content to put out. So lots of great stuff. Definitely check into it. And we will start our video here. Make sure I'm sharing computer. Oh, wait, never mind.
Hi, ladies and gentlemen. This is Steve Harney with the October edition of Keeping Current Matters. It's an interesting time in our industry right now. There's no question about that. As I'm recording this, the 10-year Treasury is just about to bounce off 5%. And of course, that's since the mortgage rate skyrocketing almost to 8%. So by the time you listen to this, we might still be in the high sevens. We might have dropped down a little bit, or we might be over 8. And obviously, any one of those scenarios will have an impact on the business. But right now, I want to concentrate on the things we can control. And one thing we can't control is where the mortgage rate is going to be. So let's really try to concentrate where are opportunities, because there's so much confusion in the market right now. Where do the opportunities actually exist? And remember, as we always say, Keeping Current Matters, most agents know what's happening. Good agents understand what's happening. Great agents can explain what's happening. So let me explain a couple of things to you and give you the charts and graphs so that you can explain it to whether it be a buyer or seller interested in purchasing right now. First off, I want to try to get rid of 3 myths that are in the marketplace right now that are confusing a lot of people. All right. Myth number 1, foreclosures are increasing. There are more and more headlines as more and more reports come out showing that foreclosures are increasing. And that's not wrong. That is true. Foreclosures are increasing. But what they're talking about in the headlines is they're up 100%, 187%. And what they're doing is they're comparing foreclosures today versus foreclosures 2 years ago, the bottom of the market, the foreclosure market. So obviously, yes, they're way above those, but to give you a visual explaining what I'm saying here, the red bars all the way to the right for the second half of 2022 and 2023 are definitely up over the what we call the unicorn years, the pandemic years, because there was a moratorium during the pandemic years. It was almost impossible to foreclose on a property, so very little. So even if there are a couple of foreclosures, and it's more than a couple, I'm not trying to dismiss that, but there's foreclosures in every market. You can see going all the way back to 2003. So we're not in a foreclosure crisis by any stretch of the imagination, even though percentage-wise, they're up over when there were very little or no foreclosures. So this is a slide visual that I would actually keep on my phones in case that comes up, because this kind of quells that fear, eliminates that objection. Well, I think the foreclosures are coming heavily into the market, because that's just not true. Another myth that's going around is that Airbnb is about to go out of business and they're going to crash the housing market because so many of those properties are coming onto the market. Well, that's not true. There was a myth, or there was a viral tweet that went out earlier this year that got a lot of recognition. Again, it went viral. And the author of that tweet actually got on television talking about the fact that Airbnbs were in a really bad space. It's not going to crash the market. They're not in that bad a space. It turned out that the data that he was using to explain the situation wasn't accurate. And the Airbnb situation is nowhere near as bad as what people were saying a couple of months back. However, I do think there's opportunities there. And we have to be aware of those opportunities, because just like I'm saying, it's not going to crash the market. It doesn't mean it's not going to have an impact on them. You know, we can't let the pendulum swing all the way back to there's no challenge whatsoever at all. Because I do think, again, there might be a challenge for some Airbnb owners. And again, that might be an opportunity for us. And it might be an opportunity to maybe get people to understand that jumping into a rental property, instead of selling their property, renting their property, if they're going to buy something else, might not be the best idea. And the reason I'm a little bit concerned about it is there was a Realtor.com and census-wide survey just recently done that showed that 59.8% of sellers who are selling their house would consider renting out their current house rather than sell it if they were to buy or rent another home in the future. That's 6 out of 10 are saying, yeah, I'd consider renting my house in the short-term rental. Approximately 20% said it would be great to have an extra income from a renter. And approximately 18% said the idea of owning a rental or investment property appeals to me. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people right now thinking about selling the house. They're going to say, you know what? I don't want to lose that 3% interest rate I have on this house, so I'm going to rent it instead. Now, if you've never been a landlord, being a landlord is a business. And you have to understand the business of being a landlord. Everybody wants to say they're a landlord. They want to have a tenant, you know, that's bringing in extra money. They don't want that call at 3 o'clock in the morning saying the toilet's not working. They don't want that call that in the last storm, a tree came through and knocked the roof empty, or knocked the roof open, I should say. And the tenant is now refusing to pay rent because it's not livable. And nobody thinks about, you know, that thing when they're saying, oh yeah, I want to be a landlord, that'd be cool. Well, you know, there's a lot of business aspects of being a landlord they might be taking into consideration. And if they're considering an Airbnb it, which a lot of people do, I want you to understand that the Airbnb situation across the country is in a little bit of a flux. There are a lot of cities across the country saying, putting extra restrictions on Airbnbs, trying to curtail the amount and actually lessen the amount that are already in the city. For example, New York City came out, I think it was New York City Law 18, that really put major restrictions on Airbnbs. What was the impact of those restrictions? Well, this past June 4th, there were 22,500 short-term rental listings in New York City. Airbnbs, verbals, whatever the case may be. That number fell to 4,600 after the law was passed. That's unbelievable. That means there's about 17,000 people that were renting their house out as a short-term rental that no longer can. Now, of course, they can rent that as a long-term rental, but if their plan was to do as a short-term rental and gain that extra income, because we know there's a lot of extra income there, or they were going to rent it out maybe 2 months of the summer and live there the other month of the summer, well, if they're going to rent it year-round, they can't do that. They can't live there 1 month of the summer. So it's putting a lot of people in flux, and I think that if we're talking to those people, we might be able to help them. Because maybe they have to downsize, maybe they, you know, their summer place, or maybe they have to realize that, you know what, this is a time to cash in. Now, it's not just the cities that are saying, all right, fine, we're going to put major restrictions on. There are also cities that are doing the exact opposite, the flip side of this issue. For example, Phoenix. In 2016, the state of Arizona passed a law that bans all of its cities and towns from capping their number of short-term rentals. They went the other way. They said, you guys have as many short-term rentals as you want. An individual city, an individual municipality can't stop, can't put a limit on it. At the start of 2023, Phoenix had over 20,000 short-term rental units. And all that competition has led to many of them sitting empty for weeks at a time. Ladies and gentlemen, that's big. Those are big numbers. So what we're seeing is in some cities around the country, they're restricting whether or not you can do an Airbnb. In other parts of the country, they're saying, no, go ahead, do whatever you want to do. And that's causing more and more people to put their house up there, meaning each house is making less money. And what is that? That's an opportunity. Because perhaps the owner of that Airbnb, instead of losing money and leaving it empty, has decided now's the time to cash in. Because you realize that those Airbnb, they're investors. Now that brings us to the next myth I want to crush, and that's Wall Street is buying every home in America. More and more people are complaining that Wall Street are buying all the homes, and that's why there's no available inventory for first-time home buyers. But the point of the matter is, it's not Wall Street buying all those homes. And I know you've seen those headlines. You've seen those headlines in the Wall Street Journal. But the point of the matter is, it's not true. If we look even at this year, all right, total purchases by size of investor. This is going through the second quarter of 2023. And they break it down. iBuyers, we know what an iBuyer is. They've really minimized, a lot of them are out of the business. They've minimized the amount of houses across the whole country they're purchasing. Then there are those investors that own more than 1,000 properties. These will be your institutional investors. Those are people, the Wall Street investors. Well, they're not buying the dominant number of homes or the prominent number of homes in the market as investors. Then we go to the 100 to 999 properties, then the 10 to 99 properties. But the vast majority of investment properties being purchased, and if we look back on numbers, these numbers hold true for what the existing inventory of investment homes, what percentage are owned by mom and pops. Those are people who own 1 to 9 properties. They might own the house next door and the house around the block. They might own 1 home. They might own 3 homes. But the vast majority of investment properties are owned by someone like your neighbor. And if we take a look at that by percentages, we can really see it. About 25% of the homes in this country, a little less than 25%, are owned by investors. And the vast majority, just like they bought them in the last 6 months, the vast majority of that 25% are mom and pop investors. And I think that's going to increase to some degree to mom and pops, because John Burns Consultant just did a survey and it showed that 7% of sellers who went to rent their home because of mortgage rates instead of selling it. So people that are buying a home, have a house to sell, or they live in a current house that they own, they're looking to buy a house, 7% have decided they want to rent it instead of sell it. And we can see what those numbers are across the country. So what I want you to understand is there is an opportunity there. For those people that are thinking about it, we have to talk to them, whether it be an Airbnb or in this case, just doing it as a rental. And those people that have bought investment properties over the years. The vast majority of investment properties owned by someone like your neighbor. But this is what's happening to that market right now. Apartment construction is roaring along at a 40-year high. That means more choices for renters, likely at lower rents, as everyone jockeys for tenants. And that's already had an impact on a lot of rental owners. As a matter of fact, a survey just done by Billiam showed that 32% of rental owners plan to sell their properties in the next 2 years to come. 32, 1 out of 3 investors are saying, you know what, now's time to go ahead and get the house on the market. So I want to talk to you about that and what that opportunity is, and we'll go into that a little deeper in a second. But what that means to me is we're going to have more inventory. And I think it's already starting, ladies and gentlemen. Here's a quote from the senior economist at Zillow. What we didn't expect, especially considering 7+% mortgage rates, was more new listings. Now, remember, ladies and gentlemen, we have active listings, which have been high for a couple of months now, and new listings keep on falling. And that's a seasonal pattern. But this last month that's recorded, the month of August, going from July to August, the September's numbers aren't in as of this recording. For the first time in 7 years that we have data for, the amount of new listings coming to the market increased, didn't decrease. There's a seasonality to new listings. And this time of year, they fall off. But this year, they didn't. Now, we have 7 years of data, but I've been in the business for over 35 years. And I can tell you, I can't think of a year in those 35 years. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 exceptions where new listings coming to the market increased in the summer. Didn't happen. It continues to decrease throughout the rest of the year. So we're really looking for that next number, because this could be a sign that people are ready to make the move. Now, who are those people ready to make the move? Well, we know about rate lock. We know that a vast majority of people have very low interest rates right now. As a matter of fact, 70.7% of all current mortgages are lower than 4%. And it's over 90% lower than 5%. And in a 7.5 environment, 7.5% mortgage environment, maybe even closer to 8 by the time you get this. All right. In that environment, none of these people want to sell because they don't want to buy another house and have to take a mortgage twice what they have, twice the percentage or rate that they have currently. But if we take a look at that and really analyze it, we'll know that, yeah, that's probably true. Anyone less than 3%, that's that blood red up in the upper right-hand quadrant, they're not selling. They're pretty, unless something real, there's a life event that makes them sell, they're not going to sell. If they have under a 4% mortgage rate, between 3 and 4, they're probably not going to sell. Between 4 and 5, they're going to have to think hard before selling. Now, if they have between 5 and a 6, in the 7s, they're probably going to sell. They're not going to let that hold them back. And obviously, if they're over 6%, they're probably going to go ahead and do it. However, if we take a look at the red and the blood red numbers, there's an exception there. And we have to be aware of the exceptions in any market in order to take advantage of the opportunities of those exceptions. And here it is. If we look to the left-hand side of this, we can see about 1 in 4 U.S. homeowners, 26%, say high mortgage rates would not impact their decision on when to sell their home. 1 out of 4 saying interest rates got nothing to do with whether or not I'm going to sell my house. We go to the right, of those 26%, 43% say it's because they would not need a mortgage to buy a new. So there are 1 out of 4 that are saying mortgage rates got nothing to do with me selling my house, which came as a surprise to me. And of that 1 out of 4, 4 out of 10 are saying they don't even need a mortgage to buy another house. And then all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, whoa, I get what's happening here. And if we break down that 43%, this is what we realize. 35% are baby boomers, 23% are Gen X. Then the numbers drop off. Why is that? Because the baby boomers and the Gen X have what? Plenty of equity. And let's take a look at that a little bit closer. This is the amount of prices have gone up in the last 5 years in this country. If you look down at the bottom right, the bottom middle, nationally, the national average is 57.3% in 5 years. That means if someone had a $400,000 house 5 years ago, that house is worth $600,000 right now. So they have that extra $200,000 equity and whatever they paid off over that 5 years of their mortgage. Depending on how long a term mortgage will determine that. But if we go 30 years back to 1991, 32 years back, we can see that the national average is prices went up almost 300%. So that means people that bought the house 30 years ago, they're sitting on a tremendous amount of equity. And those are the people that are saying, mortgage rates don't matter to me. I can go ahead and buy because I have enough equity. How much equity do they have? 38.7% of Americans today own their house free and clear. 30% have more than 50% equity, meaning if they own a $400,000 house, they have at least $200,000 in equity. And then you look all the way around the corner. Even if we go down to 0 to 9% equity, that's minimal equity, that's only less than 2% of the people in the country, homeowners in the country. And people are worried about negative equity, that's less than half of 1%. So there's plenty of equity in the country. As a matter of fact, CoreLogic in the latest equity report said quarterly gains added almost $13,900. The average U.S. homeowner now has about $290,000 in equity. Ladies and gentlemen, that's pretty, it's kind of amazing to me. Well, what does that mean? Well, people with major equity have 3 major advantages in the market. So we have to find those people and help those people understand their advantages. Number one, many will have the ability to be an all-cash buyer. They don't have to worry about the mortgage, like they said, because they're not taking a mortgage. If they have a lot of equity, they have the ability to give larger down payments. That means they'll get a more favorable interest rates, lower private mortgage insurance costs, ultimately reducing the overall cost of the mortgage. And ladies and gentlemen, number 3 is important as Americans grow older, understand they're going to need more and more help in regard to assisted living residences. Everyone says, well, they want to age in place. They don't want to age in place if they own a 4-bedroom colonial and they have to walk up a flight of stairs to go to sleep every night. And if they wake up in the middle of the night because they have a little bit of a hunger pain, they want a snack, they don't want to walk down a flight of stairs to get a cookie and then walk up a flight of stairs to get back to bed. So they want to age in place, meaning they want to be in that market, perhaps, in that neighborhood, in that region, but it doesn't mean they want to live in that house. And as they get older, they're going to have other needs. And people with a lot of equity could make that move now. And you should get to learn more and more about that as the years go on, because that's going to be a growing piece of possible business. And the other thing I want to talk about is the grandparent wish to be with grandkids. We all know that there is no grandparent that trusts their children to raise their grandchildren. And that's a joke, but the reason it's funny is because it's somewhat true. Grandparents want to be very involved with their grandchildren. And I think that because of what took place during the pandemic, where they were separated from their grandchildren, if we remember back just a couple of years ago, older people were told not to go anywhere near their grandchildren because their grandchildren at that time, they were said they can't be hurt by the virus, but they can get the virus. And then they could transfer it to a grandparent who could be seriously hurt because they had mitigating circumstances, I should say. So now that division that took place really wanted people to be closer together, forced people to be close together. They realized how much they love their families. And we have to be on top of that. I like to call it the grandparent. And it's not something I made up in my head. According to Go Banking Rates, never underestimate the power of grandchildren, especially when it comes to lifestyle and financial decision. Recent data shows that many baby boomers are relocating further away from the home that they used to, so that they can be closer to their grandbabies. That's exactly what we're talking about. And let's break it down to numbers. 77% of all sellers have no children living at home when they sell their house. They're empty nesters. 77% have no children when they sell their home. 10% have one child. But if we concentrate on the 77, that means, all their children have grown up and gone out and they're young adults with their own life now. And some of them are going to have children. And that's part of the reason that 77% sold. And they're not moving close by. Now, they talk about aging in place. If their family's there, they definitely want to age in place if they have friends. But here's an interesting thing. When we think about the grandfather ages between 55 and 74, that's the highest percentage of sellers who move at least 100 miles. People of grandfather age are the highest percentage by a lot of the people that are selling and moving more than 100 miles away. What my argument is, they're moving to be closer to family, closer to their grandchildren. Now, you might say, well, they might be moving to a retirement community. They might be moving down south for warmer weather. There's definitely some of that. But if you take a look at the surveys that are done, the number one reason, is because they want to be moved closer to friends or family. The grandparent wish is real. Let's find those people. We know they have equity. We know they want to move. They want to be with their grandkids. Let's find those people and help them understand we can make that dream come true. As a matter of fact, as a member, you have access to the professional equity assessment report. We can put your logo, put your name and the client and everything there. It's a beautiful 6 or 7 page report that you can fill out and give them the equity. That should be a major part of your prospecting right now. Forget about offering a CMA. Almost no consumer knows what a CMA even is. And there are some realtors that don't even know what the letter stands for. What they're interested in is how much equity did they build up over the last couple of years. They know it's a lot, but they don't know how much. So if you prospect, whether you do it by phone, whether you do it by door to door, whether you do it by social media advertising, whether you do it by direct mail, whether you do it by email advertising or email contacts, offer them the ability to find out exactly how much equity they have in a house. And this report, which you can download right off your member site, will give you everything you need, including scripts and everything else to help you with that. Now let's jump to current home price appreciation, because that's important. You're going to hear some talk later in this year about, well, is there a challenge with prices again? I want to kill that thinking right now. First of all, from the Wall Street Journal, home prices aren't falling anymore. The surprisingly quick recovery suggests that the residential real estate downturn is turning out to be shorter and shallower than many housing economists expected after mortgage rates soared last year. Remember all those projections that prices are going to fall 20%, 10%, 8%, 5%? Well, they fell for a little bit of time and then they came right back again. From January through August, housing demand stabilized, resulting in relatively stable home prices. By August 2023, national resale home prices fully recovered from the declines experienced in the second half of 2022 and now exceed the April 2022 peak. We had that fall off and they came back. According to Freddie Mac, overall, it appears the reduction in supply has outweighed the decrease in demand. Thus, housing prices have started to increase even as sales have fallen. And let's prove that with data, ladies and gentlemen. You know I love to prove things with data. Look at the Case-Shiller, the FHFA, and the CoreLogic report, which we give you every month, an updated version. What happened? Beginning of last year, prices appreciated way too high, way too much greater than they should have. There needed to be a correction on that. And there was, the red bars. And now appreciation is much more on the historical norm. So those are 3 indexes. Here's another 3. They are all showing the same thing. As a matter of fact, the FHFA shows that in every single region of the country, prices are up. And if we go to Case-Shiller, every single of the 20 cities they cover, all 20 cities are up. And when people tell you, well, what about Los Angeles? What about Seattle? What about Phoenix? I guess Phoenix is getting killed. All of those cities are coming back, and each of them in the last month recorded is July, because there's a lag time with Case-Shiller. We see that they're all up 1% in a month. So yes, prices are coming back even in the hardest situations. Now, there will be some cities that is the exception that make the rule. Austin's still getting hit pretty hard. New Orleans in southern Louisiana is still getting hit pretty hard. Boise, Idaho is getting hit pretty hard. But if you're not doing business in Boise, New Orleans, or Austin, you're doing pretty good. So let's not let, some cities paint a picture, or let's not allow mass media to paint the picture that everything is a big challenge. Now, going forward, future home prices, really important. We understand what's happening. High mortgage rates have slowed additional price surges, which is a good thing, with monthly increases returning to regular seasonal averages. In other words, home prices are still growing or in line with historical seasonal expectations. What does that mean? If we look back the last 49 years and we average it out, this is how much prices have gone up each month. So what we can see is the beginning of the year, prices go up higher, quicker. The appreciation accelerates as we're going into the prime buyer season. And then when we hit summer, the appreciation decelerates. We're not talking about depreciation. The bars would be red if we were talking about depreciation. No, appreciation decelerates. Now, by the end of this year, those bars are so close to zero, maybe one of them is going to slip to a red bar at the end of this year. but there's not going to be any big fall off in prices. But starting now, and we're already starting to see some headlines come out, people are going to misunderstand the deceleration of appreciation and say prices are falling. They're not falling. They're just not going up as fast as they did. An example I like to use, if you're driving along on flat land and all of a sudden you start to go up a mountain, if you keep your foot on the gas pedal at the same angle, you're going to go up that mountain slower. Right? Because there's an incline. It's going to cause you to slow up. So you're still moving forward. You're just not going as fast as you were going forward. If we say decrease, you should not be like you jammed it in reverse and started going downhill in reverse. That's not taking place. Prices are still moving forward, just at a slower speed. And that's already happening, and that's good news. We didn't have the massive appreciation we had at the beginning of last year. But if we take a look, what we can see, we had a little extra appreciation, a little less appreciation at the beginning of the year, caught up for that in March, April, and May, but now we're getting back to normal numbers again. And some people are suggesting, nevertheless, home prices are still expected to re-accelerate and reach mid-single digit growth rate by the end of the year, according to CoreLogic's latest home price index forecast. Some people are saying we're still going to be good. We're not going to go anywhere near the red. What we want to do is give you 6 of the year-end forecast that just came out. American Enterprise Institute, Zillow, Fannie Mae, the Home Price Expectation Service survey, which we'll talk about in a second, Mortgage Bankers Association, and NAR. NAR is the only one that is projecting the prices will be less at the end of this year than they were at the end of last year. Everyone else is seeing that prices are going to be going up. The average of all 6 of them is 3.3%. So what are we going to have this year? A little less than normal appreciation. And that's a good thing after 2 years of crazy appreciation. Prices are settling in, wages are going up. Both of those things have an impact on affordability. Nowhere near the impact that mortgage rates do. So mortgage rates have to moderate for affordability to really be impacted in a big way. But that's what we're hoping for as we move forward. Housing prices, the appreciation moderates to normal numbers. Wages continue to go up. And mortgage rates eventually moderate. When that's going to happen, no one knows, ladies and gentlemen. No one knows. Now, the Home Price Expectation Survey, which I just mentioned, is a nationwide panel of over 100 economists, real estate experts, and investment and market strategists. They project 5 years out. This is what they project for the next 5 years. Just like the average of those 6 others was 3.3%, they're looking at 3.32%, the 100 analysts that they surveyed. Next year, they think that's going to be a little less. Do I think that number is going to go up? Because I think they were a little negative. They adjusted the 2023 number up. I think eventually they're going to adjust the 2024 number up into the 3s. But we're not looking at crazy appreciation, but we're also not looking at any red bars. When people say prices are going to fall, some are going to say prices are going to crash. Well, no, that's not what people are. That's not what the surveys are showing, what the experts are saying. There might be 1 or 2 people saying, hey, listen, I think the world's coming apart. But the vast majority are saying, no, we're going to have steady, maybe a little bit below historical appreciation. And that's going to help in a very big way. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that we gave you a lot of information today. I hope you can use some of it. One of the biggest takeaways is that if we take a look even at this slide, if you were an investor, whether you were an Airbnb investor, whether you were a mom and pop investor that owned 3 or 4 homes that you rented year round, you made a fortune over the last couple of years. You're not going to make a fortune over the next couple of years. Maybe it's time to cash in. Let them see this chart along with the other charts I showed you. And let them make a decision. Maybe it's time for them to take some of that money out and start a business. Maybe it's time to sell some of those properties and help the kids with student debt. Maybe it's time to take out some of the money of that. And what's getting crushed right now in real estate? Commercial property. Maybe if they own 10 houses, they sell 5 of them and buy a small commercial building on Main Street. Instead of complaining about the challenges in the market right now, those challenges are creating opportunities. And instead of concentrating on the challenge, let's concentrate on the opportunities they're creating. And every week, every Monday, we do a Facebook Live where we go exactly at that. 11 o'clock Eastern time, 8 o'clock Pacific time, on Keeping Current.
All right. I will also download the slides. I think I did earlier. Yes. And I will drop those in our Facebook group if you're a member. And if not, if you give me just a little bit here as we're closing out, I will drop you a link in Drive. All right. Where'd my Zoom go? Hold on. All right, there you guys are. So weird. I couldn't see you through the whole thing. All right. Any thoughts on the market report? I see some questions about KCM. You can just go to Keeping Current Matters and you can get all the information and become a member. I think it's like $25 a month. I think it was 19, but I think it's 25. I'm not exactly sure. But you can go check it all out. Oh, you pay 55 a month. So there are different levels then. I'm not sure what level I even have. I've had it forever. So maybe I'm in a grandfathered in or something. Okay, let's see. Yes, I love this information too. I think it makes me think differently. I don't know what you guys think, but you know, we kind of tend to think in our own bubble and just what's exactly happening with the buyers we have, the sellers we have, you know, maybe some of our market stats. But I love how he breaks it down, and then even learning more about the mortgage piece, because I don't, you know, dig into that. Maybe some of you do. Some of you might be, you know, more analytical and you like all that information, which is great. But this is kind of my source of that. So I love that. Chris said, offering a professional equity assessment report to everyone is an absolute must. Yes. Probably about 10 years ago, I kind of changed my verbiage on CMAs. And so I just call mine an equity evaluation. So I like this professional name. But I would say, when I went to my listing appointment, I would say most realtors are probably going to show up with, you know, like a CMA. It's kind of this antiquated system where they bring you 3 comparables. But my report, you know, assesses your property 4 different ways. And I talk through the 4. So, you know, it's something you can use in your appointments, just differentiating yourself, right? And if your report, of course, is different than just a normal CMA, which if you add some stats and add, you know, I always add online valuations to mine to just show them that we're armed with all of the information, and that, you know, buyers a lot of times are going to look at things like a Zillow. It doesn't mean that's what our value is, but they're going to look at that. So we want to know that up front. So when we're pricing and negotiating, we have all that information. So just differentiating yourself is awesome. Joe said, already seeing cities here pass regulations, capping Airbnbs, good info. Yeah, on too strict or too loose. I agree. That was really interesting insight. You know, just people doing too much, and then what happened to the market for them, and then, you know, too loose. Oh, yes. Sorry. I almost forgot. I said I was going to download those slides. So let me do that really fast so I can get that to you guys. Any other insights that you have?
I just like how he helps us think outside the box. Each one of those slides, he gave us different perspective. Things were popping into my head. I didn't think about that. That's a good idea. So you write it down. It's like there's content in so much of that, not just the slide. It was just as much what he said. You know, how you can, like for me, I was recently joined an Airbnb Facebook group of owners, and I saw a bunch of people selling their furniture and their stuff. And so I messaged them and I said, hey, are you selling your Airbnb or just redecorating? I haven't seen the response because I just saw that last night, but I know that they're tightening up around here in my area dramatically, and because neighbors don't like it. And even though they're not in HOAs, residents don't like it in the non-HOA, especially on the water. And so I thought there's an opportunity for listings right there, because those are waterfronts, a lot of them. And so his stats were really intriguing to me, and that's a target market that I was going to go after.
That's awesome. I love that, where you thought to message the people that were selling furniture from the Airbnb. That is so.
Well, years ago, when I was really broke and just moved into the area, I was trying to furnish my own little baby house, And I would go to garage sales early in the morning. I'd be the first one there. And I started asking the people selling, I said, are you getting ready to sell your house or just thinning out? And a lot of times they would say, we're getting ready to sell. And I say, have you picked a realtor yet? And if they had or they hadn't, I'd say, would you be willing to interview one more? And I got $1 million deals that way. And so I'm always asking, when I see stuff for sale, there's that activity happening.
Yeah, that's so good. And that's the season that we're in right now. It is going to be a little more creative thinking to find different opportunities, because it isn't going to be just people calling us anymore, as much as we want. And if you do have lead flow where they are calling you a lot, that's awesome. But probably the majority, we have to get a little creative like Kathy was. That's awesome. I love it. Okay, here I'm missing questions. Sorry. What are the 4 ways you get the equity reports? Oh, the 4 types that I use. Oh yeah, here, 4 sources. Yes. Okay, so the 4 sources I use for my equity evaluation are, I use the absorption rate with active, under contract, and sold. So I use an absorption rate, under contract, and sold. That's one way I evaluate the property. The second way is square footage. So we go off of strictly square footage just to make sure that, if you have people that are moving or are typically looking at new construction, they're always looking at just price per square foot. So we do it that way as well. The third way is tax information. So how are they taxed? And then the last way is internet evaluation. So then I go and get the Zillow. And so when I use 7 solds instead of 3. And when I take my 7 solds and then I input those into each of those categories, so the CMA part, right, or where you're doing the active, under contract, and sold, when I take the solds from there and put it into square footage analysis, tax analysis, and internet analysis, then it gives me basically averages on all of those. So I can see how the tax data fits, I can see how price per square foot fits, and I can see how internet estimates fit. And just from doing that forever and ever and ever, I know that actually Zillow is generally somewhere between 75 and 82% of list price in my area. So after you do it long enough, you're going to get basically averages where you just start to know, and you're able to price these properties even quicker maybe than before. So that's how I do that. Yes. 2 dogs are in and out of here all the time, making too much noise. Corey said, I have homes sitting on the market. I have some homes sitting on the market. I'd say the market speaking to us after 60 days and 5 showings, but I wish I could say with confidence that we're chasing a falling market. Currently in the Western North Carolina market, we really aren't seeing that too much across the board, maybe pockets, but as a region. Any suggestions? Anybody can chime in as well if you have suggestions. I would say, Corey, that if you only had 5 showings in 60 days and you know that other homes in that price range are selling, since you've listed, then you definitely have a price issue. It's basically the only thing we can fix, right? Is price. You can't fix the location. You can do things with the condition, but ultimately it's going to come down to price. So I would do a 60-day new market analysis. I do them every 30 days or did them every 30 days. And I would use that original equity evaluation and then quick rerun those numbers to see what's happening. And then weekly sending a market report showing them what's come active since they've listed, what's went under contract, and what's sold. And then you can kind of just get that little pocket micro analysis of what's happening with your house. And it just may help. There isn't generally this scientific answer, which is what you're seeing, right? Are we riding a down market? Are we not? It may just be that price range. It may be nothing selling right now. So kind of doing that may just help give you context to talk to the seller as well. And I would also suggest, if you guys are not talking to your sellers every week, same day, giving them an update on anything. Showings, when's the last time you did an open? When's the last time you had a price reduction? What's happening in the market? Where are mortgage rates? Just cover those things really quickly. When you need to adjust their price or talk to them about some of these harder conversations, it's easier to do because they've heard from you every single week. And then at your listing presentation, let them know we're going to talk about pricing. Doesn't mean we're going to drop it. It just means we're going to talk about pricing every 30, 60, 90, and so on. So every 30 days, right before that. Michael said, love the continued from KCM that we have to be the great agents that can explain what's happening in the market right now. Yes, that is a great reminder. They do keep reminding us that, right? The confident agent. Oh, Zillow also has to disclose their accuracy per area. Nice. Brittany put a link. I would love to learn how to do an equity evaluation like you. That's nice. It's nothing special. It's just using those 7 solds and then going through that information. I just put it, you know, in a doc, like it's nothing awesome. Stacy, are you using a spreadsheet? Yes. Yep. I actually, got it from Real Estate B School. So we use it in our coaching. And, so it was just a spreadsheet though. It's not like a software you purchase. Yes. So some areas with showing time, this is a good point, Kathy. My area does not have these reports with showing time because it's what your MLS will also allow, which is so weird to me. And my MLS doesn't offer much, but they have that showing time report, which shows how many buyers are seeing homes in that price range. I hate it that I don't have this. And I knew that other people did, and I don't get it in my area. And if you can get it, oh my gosh, get it. Like exactly what Kathy said, it shows you how many homes are being shown in that price range. So you really have great data.
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Wonderful. I discovered it years ago. I use it on listing appointments and I use it on my follow-up. It's called Market Reports. You go underneath the listings and showing times, called right down the bottom, Market Reports. You can do 30, 60, 90 days. You pick your price point, you define your area. So sometimes I'll show them, like, let's say the whole town. I'll say, here's the whole town, here's happening in your whole town. Then I'll narrow it down to the zip code, and I'll let them see the changes. And if their price is way high and nobody's shopping in their price, I can say, this validates why we need to move our price. But it also, I can do that in my listing presentation, because I can say, you're thinking here, but the market's right here. We need to be where the market's at, not up here. Or we're chasing it and we'll end up down here. And those visuals are so powerful. I always use those on a listing presentation. And I always use it in the follow-ups, like if they're staying on the market, which they are a little longer right now for some homes.
Yeah, that's awesome. And to Kathy's point, because she's printing it off or whatever on her iPad computer, showing it during a listing presentation, that can be part of your professional home equity report, right? So it's just showing up a little bit different, even with what you use. But thank you for sharing that, Kathy, because yeah, if you guys have that, check it out. If you use showing time, check that out. And if you can't get it, check with your MLS. You know, maybe it's an option so that you can use it. All right, I dropped the link in there for you guys with the slides. They are there. If you're part of our other groups, they will be listed in those areas as well. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we will see you again next Tuesday for another production mastermind. I hope you guys have a great day. Take care.